Hey everybody, welcome into our video on the whole tone scale. This episode is going to show you all about what the whole tone scale is, how to practice it, and some cool things that you can do with it. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing we need to cover is what actually is the whole tone scale. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory actually. It's called the whole tone scale because it uses whole steps. Now, in my opinion, that can be a little bit confusing. I actually think they should call it the whole step scale because that actually makes a lot more sense, right? But that's all it is. It is a collection of whole steps. Now, if you think about whole steps and how many there are before you hit an octave, there's actually only 6 whole steps and then you're back to an octave. So that makes this scale actually a very easy one to learn because you actually only have to learn 2 of them and then learn all the modes of those scales. This is a scale that's actually used a lot. If you ever listen to like movie soundtracks or anything that's trying to tell a story, this is used for a lot of sort of dream sequence kind of sounds. In fact, I bet you're going to recognize it as soon as I play it because I bet you've heard it a bunch of times before. But let's check out what it sounds like first and foremost. So that's what the whole tone scale actually sounds like in action. You can tell it has a very unique sound to it because there's only the presence of whole steps and nothing else in there. So how do we practice this scale? Well, like I said, there's only 2 of them. So if you imagine one starts on C and the other one starts a half step up on D flat. Let's start right there. So if you think about the notes in a C whole tone scale, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and then you're back to C. 6 notes before you get back to the octave, correct? Now, if you think about the D flat whole tone scale, we have D flat, E flat, F, G, A, B, D flat. So there's your other whole tone scale. Now, you don't just want to practice 2 of these because you can actually use them in a whole bunch of situations and you have to be able to kind of start this from every note. So the way that you're going to practice this is you're going to practice the modes of every scale. So what do I mean by that? We start the C whole tone scale on C, play up to C, back down. Then we started on D, play up to D, back down. Now these are all the same notes, we're just starting in a different place in the scale every time, therefore practicing the modes. And then the next one would actually be back where you started. So I'm going to practice that in the key of C, and then I'm going to practice that in the key of D flat, and I'm going to start being able to get around my instrument using the whole tone scale. Now you can also practice it using any exercise that you use for, let's say, your major scales. So a lot of things that I like to do with my major scales, practice thirds, practice fourths, different things like that. That will really help you also get around the whole tone scale, just like any other scale. Now you can also practice certain segments of the scale, working your way up and down the scale in maybe 4-note segments, maybe doing it in triplets. Anything that you can possibly think of that's going to give you more flexibility with the scale is fair game. So after you've practiced all this kind of stuff, you can have a pretty good handle on the scale. So there's actually one more really, really cool thing about this scale. And that is that it's made up of actually two augmented triads that are a whole step apart. So this is a great way to practice a scale, and particularly if you're an improviser, this can lead to some really cool lines that you can play in your solos that sound very angular and dissonant. For lack of a better term. Because of the fact that they're both augmented, it gives this really interesting sound to the lines. So if I go back to my C whole tone scale, I can play a C augmented triad and a D augmented triad back to back, and it sounds amazing. So that right there is one of my favorite sounds to use when improvising. In fact, I probably use it too much, but I just really dig the sound, so I do tend to use it a lot. Next thing to do after you get some of that stuff down is actually just try to improvise a little bit using those two sets of triads. Now, the longer that you spend practicing that improvisation, the better it's going to sound, the more vocabulary you're going to have ready to go with that particular sound, and then you're going to really start to be able to work it into your playing, which is the ultimate goal of any of this stuff. So hopefully that has illustrated a little bit of what the whole tone scale is for you if you were wondering about it, how you can use it. I think I'm going to do another video on actually how to put it over chord changes and where I tend to use this kind of stuff, because I think that's the real practical application for it. But for now, just get used to this whole tone scale, start practicing it in both of those keys, practice all the modes, all that stuff that we talked about today, and then by the time I put out that other video, you will be ready to learn how to actually use it over a tune you're improvising over in your compositions or any of that stuff. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this. We will talk to you soon. Have a great day.